The overcast sky hung low that day, a blanket of gray that seemed to echo the somber mood enveloping the gathering. A small, weathered chapel stood at the edge of a quiet cemetery, its rustic charm marred by the heaviness of loss. Inside, wooden benches were filled with mourners dressed in dark attire, their faces etched with sorrow and disbelief. The air was thick with an atmosphere of quiet reverence, broken only by muffled sobs and whispers of remembrance. Framed photographs adorned a small table nearby. Memories of laughter and joy contrasted starkly with the present grief. In the front, a polished wooden coffin rested on a raised platform, surrounded by wreaths of white flowers, the kind typically reserved for funerals, each bloom symbolizing love and memories lost. The scent of these flowers mingled with that of burnt candles lining the chapel, creating an almost surreal blend that felt both sacred and sorrowful. It was here, beneath the dim lighting and somber shadows, that family and friends had gathered to pay their final respects to a beloved father who had been taken too soon. As the service began, a hush fell over the attendees, punctuated occasionally by soft sniffles and tender exchanges. Eulogies filled the air, praising a life lived fully but cut tragically short. Stories painted pictures of warmth, generosity, and unwavering love, qualities that had shaped not only his family's lives but also those of friends and co-workers. Yet amid this collective mourning sat a small figure whose presence struck an even deeper chord within everyone in the room. A 2-year-old girl sat in the front row, her tiny frame dwarfed by the surrounding grown-ups. With tousled hair framing her innocent face and wide eyes searching for understanding, she seemed almost an anomaly in this sea of grief. Every now and then, she would point toward the coffin as if trying to make sense of everything happening around her. Her voice was soft but firm when she asked questions that echoed loudly in the silence. "Where's Daddy? And is he coming back?" Each query tugged at heartstrings more than any eulogy could. The child's mother sat beside her, her eyes rimmed with tears, but she struggled to articulate a response. What could she say in a moment when words felt utterly insufficient? Unable to find comfort in her own sadness, she desperately wished for clarity for her little girl. However, what could explain death to someone so young? The mother reached down to hold her daughter's hand tightly, as if to anchor both herself and her daughter amidst tumultuous emotions swirling around them. As different family members offered their stories and anecdotes about the deceased, they captured fleeting smiles from some in attendance. Yet every time the little girl pointed toward her father's coffin, it drew gasps of sorrow mixed with compassion from those witnessing her innocence juxtaposed against profound loss. There was something raw about it, the way she clutched her toy tightly as if drawing strength from its familiarity even while facing heartbreak. With every passing moment, it became clear that this funeral was not just about commemorating a life lost. It was also about confronting the confusing realities of life and connection through the eyes of a child. Here was a stark reminder that even amidst profound sadness, there remained threads of hope, a hope vested heavily in love that transcended beyond life itself. And so they gathered in that quiet chapel, not only to mourn but to embrace the enduring bonds they all shared with the man who had meant so much to them all. Amid the hushed whispers and muffled sobs, a small figure captured the attention of everyone in the chapel. The 2-year-old girl, with her bright blue dress, stood out against the backdrop of mourning attire. Her eyes, wide and curious, darted around as if trying to make sense of the adult world swirling with sadness. With every glance towards the coffin, she seemed to draw in the collective grief around her. Yet her innocence remained untainted by the heavy atmosphere. Her hair was a tousled mess of golden curls that framed her cherubic face, which held a mixture of confusion and determination. Sitting on her mother's lap, she occasionally leaned over to gaze at the polished wood just a few feet away, her tiny finger pointing inquisitively toward it. "Daddy?" she uttered softly at first, her voice barely audible but carrying an urgency that resonated within everyone nearby. For those listening, it was as if her innocent inquiry pierced through the fog of sorrow enveloping them. The little girl had always been a spark of joy, bubbling laughter that could light up even the darkest days. In moments before this tragedy unfolded, she had shared countless memories with her father. Dance parties in the living room, bedtime stories filled with adventure, and games played in sunny parks. Now stripped of those joyful interactions, she faced uncertainty alone. As she pointed toward the coffin again, searching for answers that seemed so far out of reach, a wave of sympathy washed over those who watched her struggle to comprehend what felt incomprehensible. Her mother gently brushed back a tear-soaked strand from her daughter's forehead and offered what little comfort she could. He's resting," she managed to say through choked-back emotions. But deep down, she knew that such explanations might only confuse an already bewildered child. How could she explain death to someone so young? Words felt inadequate. All around them echoed memories too painful to articulate. As family members approached to offer their condolences or share reminiscing smiles cloaked in sadness, they couldn't help but steal glances at the little girl. Some saw reflections of their own lost childhoods. Others recognized their past selves, the innocence they once carried before being exposed to life's harsh realities. Those who approached would often kneel down beside her. They tried to comfort not only the grieving mother, but also this small child whose questions evoked deeper layers of grief for everyone present. "Where's Daddy?" became an almost mantra as she repeated it softly amidst fits of giggles and shyness when encountering kind faces offering sympathetic smiles. Each repetition struck chords within attendees, some feeling tears well up while others turned away momentarily to conceal their heartbreak. Yet there was something profoundly touching about this little girl's presence amid tragedy. It reminded everyone gathered that love endures beyond physical separation. Her innocence served as a gentle nudge for those mourning, a reminder that even in grief's darkest hours lies a glimmer of hope infused through love shared between parent and child. In moments like these, where joy met sorrow, it became clear how intertwined life truly is, how one can exist without overshadowing another entirely. Amidst unbearable loss lay nuggets of precious memories locked within laughter and warmth, a legacy left behind by a father who would forever remain their guiding star in all things mundane yet beautiful. As each passing minute unfurled stories laced with shared love and laughter echoing off chapel walls, it became evident that this small girl held within her hands both heartache and healing, a juxtaposition uniquely hers in this time of profound loss. As the service unfolded, the moment arrived when the little girl would first fully confront the reality of her father's coffin. Sitting quietly on her mother's lap, she observed as mourners shed tears, and some family members stood up to share their memories. The dim lighting and heavy atmosphere seemed surreal to her, but deeper than her initial observations lay a burgeoning curiosity that pulled at her. She barely understood what was happening, yet a sense of urgency bloomed within her. With sudden resolve, she shifted in her seat and wriggled from her mother's embrace. Her tiny feet patted softly against the chapel floor as she made her way toward the front where the coffin lay. With every step she took, heads began to turn. Adults watched with a mix of concern and curiosity. Her blue dress stood in stark contrast against the sea of muted colors enveloping the gathering, a symbol of childhood innocence amid profound sorrow. When she arrived at the polished wooden structure, she paused, tilting her head to one side as if trying to comprehend this centerpiece of grief. The coffin's smooth surface glimmered under the soft lights, augmenting its almost ethereal quality. Standing on tiptoes, she reached out with her small hand, fingertips grazing the edge with unsteady curiosity. A few gasps escaped the lips of nearby attendees who held their breath in disbelief. Did the child truly grasp what stood before her? "Daddy?" she called out again, this time louder and imbued with genuine longing. Her voice echoed through the solemn chapel. It was innocent yet demanding in its sincerity. Those words hung heavily in the air, more poignant than any scripted eulogy could convey. A ripple of emotion spread through the crowd, and many struggled to contain their tears. Each of them could feel not only their own heartbreak but also an inexplicable connection to this child's plea. Here was someone whose need for connection transcended the adult despair that had befallen them. She looked lost but eager for answers that nobody could seem to provide. Her mother rose in alarm, intending to sweep her back into her protective embrace, yet something unseen compelled her to pause. Perhaps it was instinct, a maternal urge to let her daughter confront this darker chapter of life in her own undiluted way. Instead, She stayed back, allowing the moment to unfold. The little girl took another tentative step closer and climbed onto a small pedestal that held the coffin aloft. An act of courage fueled by confusion and pure love. As she perched herself on top of the polished wood, she curled up slightly, laying her head down upon it as though seeking solace from both familiarity and longing. "I want to join Daddy," she whispered, succeeding in piercing through layers of grief surrounding them. The collective breath of the crowd seemed to exhale in unison as gasps turned into quiet sobs. How could an innocent child articulate such profound emotion? Each person present was swept away by an unexpected tide of feeling. Heartstrings resonated with a mix of sympathy and understanding that transcended words. With those tender words, this 2-year-old became both a symbol of unfiltered love and a reflection of shared sorrow. A poignant reminder that grief had room for both despair and hope. The simplicity of her desire lashed out fiercely at anyone struggling to understand. In those moments that intertwined joy with profound loss, grief morphed into something almost transcendent. They watched as she curled tighter around her father's coffin, whispering sweet nothings and softly naming him until it felt as if all hearts inside that chapel beat in reverence for this child who faced sorrow head-on. In direct confrontation with mortality itself, she personified a love equal parts heart-wrenching and beautiful. A moment that would remain etched in everyone's memory long after they left that sacred space filled with both tears and shimmering love. As the little girl lay atop her father's coffin, the atmosphere in the chapel shifted once more, thickening with a mix of sorrow and compassion. The mourners, who had previously been caught in their own grief, now found their attention drawn to the poignant scene unfolding before them. Soft whispers filled the air as attendees exchanged glances, struggling to process the profound innocence displayed by this 2-year-old grappling with an incomprehensible loss. One by one, family members approached, kneeling beside the girl or standing quietly a few steps away. Their faces reflected a spectrum of emotions: sadness, nostalgia, and a deep yearning for connection amid grief. They couldn't help but wonder what was going through her young mind. Was she truly aware of the finality of death? Did she understand that her father would not be returning? Some attendees leaned closer, attempting to engage with her in gentle tones. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" one elderly aunt asked softly, her voice cracking slightly under the weight of emotion. "Do you want to talk to us?" A few others nodded in agreement, expressing concern through shared looks that spoke volumes. The little girl turned her head slightly at the sound of their voices, her big blue eyes widening with curiosity and confusion. She lifted her small finger once more toward the coffin and repeated her earlier question, "Where's Daddy?" The simplicity of her inquiry hung in the air like a fragile thread connecting everyone present. It cut through the surrounding sorrow, forcing each adult to confront their own emotions laid bare by their inability to offer a satisfactory explanation. "I know you miss him," replied another family member gently, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "We all miss him very much." There was something about how these kind adults tried to console her that resonated deeply with those watching. How they searched for answers not just for her but for themselves as well. But children often perceive things far differently than adults. Their understanding is more instinctual than rationalized. This child's raw honesty brought forth even deeper questions among the crowd. How could they articulate such complex feelings surrounding death when faced with a chasm of grief themselves? The little girl clung to her father's coffin and looked back at the adults with innocent trust, as if expecting them to provide some magic answer that could bridge this sudden chasm in her life. "I want to join him," she said again softly, words echoing hauntingly through the room. At this moment, the vulnerability she displayed ignited tears among those who heard her words. Mourners exchanged pained glances. Many were reminded of their own losses or unfulfilled longings for lost loved ones. They understood what it meant to desire closeness even when circumstances forbade it. "It's okay," whispered another relative who had joined them at the front. "You're always connected by love," he reassured her gently. But even as he spoke those comforting words, it became clear that no amount of consolation could fully eliminate the child's aching longing or clarify what lay beyond. As questions continued to arise from various attendees, some offering gentle reassurances while others struggled with what felt like inadequate responses, the atmosphere remained charged with emotion. Conversations became softer yet more profound as people shared their remembrances of the deceased. Anecdotes that painted pictures of joy intertwined with heartbreak. There was a unity blossoming amid this collective grief. Each person faced an unspoken challenge together, a challenge that came from recognizing both love and loss intertwined in ways that transcended mere words. The chapel turned into a sanctuary for both tears and laughter shared over memories cherished, while also honoring profound connections that persisted even in absence. In this emotional maelstrom driven largely by the little girl's inquiries, hope flickered like candlelight amidst darkness. A reminder that love remains enduring despite physical separation from those we hold dear. In this space filled with grief transformed into empathy and understanding, they began to realize that togetherness was perhaps the most powerful response they could muster during such trying times. As the little girl lay on her father's coffin, her small frame curled into a ball of innocent longing, it became clear that her heart was heavy with an emotion far beyond her years. Her wide blue eyes sparkled with unshed tears, while her tiny fingers traced the edges of the polished wood beneath her. In that moment, she seemed to embody the love and grief that permeated the room, the rawness of her desire radiating like a beacon through the fog of sorrow. "I want to join Daddy," she whispered again, her voice soft yet filled with a clarity that sliced through the collective heartache surrounding her. Each word was simple yet profound, echoing through the quiet chapel as if calling out to every attendee present. Her longing resonated deeply within the mourners. It awakened memories of their own wishes and dreams entwined with unfulfilled yearnings. Those who watched felt a wave of protectiveness wash over them. How could they explain to her that her father was gone for good? Their hearts broke at the thought of how this innocent child could comprehend such a vast and overwhelming concept in an instant. As adults instinctively tried to shield their children from life's harsh realities, here stood one who was confronting those very truths head-on. Some family members gathered around quietly, an aunt kneeling close by and gently brushing back the girl's curls before whispering tenderly, "Sweetheart, we all miss him too." The adult's voice trembled with emotion, managing to encapsulate shared grief while attempting to nurture this little one's spirit. Yet even as she cradled the girl's face in her hands, emotions surged within everyone present. Indescribable waves of sorrow intermingled with gratitude for life's moments both cherished and lost. In those fragile seconds, many attendees witnessed an exchange of love surpassing words. They saw not just a child expressing desire but also how pure love remained undiminished by mortality. A love that illuminated darkness even in deep despair. The simplicity of her need gave way to an understanding that transcended age. It was a reflection of their own desires for connection, for closeness that time could never truly sever. With each person who stepped forward to comfort her or offer words of solace, it became increasingly apparent how essential their shared humanity was during such painful moments. "You will always carry your dad in your heart," one uncle said gently as he knelt beside her. "And he will always be watching over you." Yet as comforting as these words were meant to be, they only partially eased the ache echoing in that little girl's heart. For children like her, reassurance often came in physical forms, laughter shared during playtime or cuddles during bedtime stories, which were now absent from this new reality she faced alone. Undeterred by uncertainty, she turned once more toward the coffin, laying down again upon its smooth surface as if seeking refuge from heartbreak while yearning for familiarity in this strange and painful world. "Can I go with him?" she murmured softly into the wood, seeking answers from something beyond comprehension. Witnessing such raw vulnerability only intensified feelings among those present. They felt compelled not only to comfort but also to protect this fragile embodiment of hope and loss intertwined so intricately together. Throughout those moments marked by quiet desperation mixed with tenderness, every observer understood at long last how beautifully complex grief could be. It held space for innocence alongside pain. As tears began flowing more freely among attendees, mourners unable to contain their empathy, they recognized how much healing could arise from collectively bearing witness to this little girl's journey through sorrow alongside them all. Just by being herself, a child grappling earnestly with loss, she had provided them all a glimpse into life's profundities. Love endures despite absence. It shapes who we are inside even when our loved ones are no longer physically present. Through this act of longing, they found connection not just within tragedy, but amid hope stirring softly beneath all-consuming grief. A poignant reminder that true love transcends boundaries and remains interwoven with shared memories and burgeoning strength evident in everyday existence. As the little girl clung to the edge of her father's coffin, a wave of determination surged through her small body. With wide eyes shining with a mix of resolve and confusion, she shifted her weight slightly, preparing to climb up. The scene unfolded in slow motion, each movement carrying with it the weight of collective heartbreak from all those witnessing this tender, yet heartbreaking act. The soft whispers among the mourners swelled into an audible murmur as they collectively held their breath. Adults instinctively shifted closer yet hesitated to intervene. They were torn between protecting this innocent child and allowing her to express her grief in her own way. The little girl took a deep breath, her feet unsteady on the smooth surface as she found the courage to pull herself up onto the coffin. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. There was something hauntingly beautiful about watching this child navigate through pain that was so much larger than herself. Her bright blue dress contrasted starkly with the somber setting, a vivid reminder of innocence amidst tragedy. Leaning over gently, she cradled her head against the polished wood, offering herself comfort in this strange new reality where Daddy was now only a memory. As she nestled against the coffin, whispers turned into soft sobs among the attendees. There were no words strong enough to convey the emotional upheaval that filled the air. The love she displayed for her father resonating through every heart present in that small chapel at IT was as if her simple act embraced an entire spectrum of grief. Loss, longing, and undying love all colliding together within that tiny body. "Can I go with him?" she murmured again, this time stronger as tears spilled down her cheeks and pooled against the wood. The words echoed outwards, pulling at heartstrings and prompting gentle reassurances from nearby family members who knelt closer in solidarity, each of them grappling with their own emotions even while trying to comfort her. "No one can join him right now," one aunt whispered gently, kneeling beside her with tears glistening on her cheeks. "But he will always be in your heart." Each word felt insufficient as they tumbled out. Still, there was a sincerity in those gestures, a recognition that not everything could be made right again. Sharing this intimate moment forged connections between family members and mourners who had known each other long before this tragedy had struck them. In that shared vulnerability lay unspoken promises, commitments to remember and nurture love even as they learned how to honor those they lost. Despite their overwhelming sorrow at watching the little girl navigate through her grief so openly, there was also a sense of healing blossoming amidst those tearful exchanges. The raw honesty emanating from this child tapped into collective experiences, the innate understanding that life is both precious and fleeting. As she curled around the coffin further, clutching tightly and pressing small kisses against its surface, the sobs transformed into quiet acknowledgement among attendees. They were embracing grief together in ways words could never encapsulate wholly. Some quietly shed tears while others offered gentle caresses on soft shoulders. Unspoken unity grew stronger with every shared glance filled with empathy and understanding. Attendees felt more alive than ever before, not just mourning in isolation but rather together, holding on to memories infused with warmth intermingled within sadness. Watching this little girl grapple with loss illuminated universal truths surrounding love's endurance even when faced with harsh realities. Through her sweet innocence mixed intricately within heartache lay pathways for growth. Ways to bring forth healing carried not solely by time, but also forged through mutual support found within shared moments marked by vulnerability. In those minutes spent atop her father's coffin, a poignant embrace wrapping around everyone present, it became clear. Love doesn't dissolve when someone passes away. It echoes tenderly across time. A testament woven deeply into each spent moment of remembrance observed within a chapel full of tears, but also twinkling hope nestled softly beneath its heavy coat of sorrow. As the little girl nestled on her father's coffin, the emotional weight of the moment began to reverberate through the chapel. The air thickened with unprocessed grief, and attendees felt their hearts collectively break as they witnessed her innocent display of love and longing. Soft sobs punctuated the silence, and eyes filled with tears reflected not just sorrow for the child, but also a deep awareness of their own struggles with loss. Family members who had come to offer support found themselves momentarily lost in this shared experience. Faces that once bore stoic expressions now softened. Sadness intertwined seamlessly with empathy as they observed this innocent soul confronting an insurmountable void. Each person was swept up in an emotional tide that seemed to transcend the individual hurt. This tiny figure became a mirror reflecting their own feelings about losing someone cherished. One by one, relatives approached the coffin, unable to resist the urge to connect with both the child and their memories of the father being honored. An older cousin knelt beside her, brushing away tears as he whispered tales of laughter and joy from times spent together, a reminder of what once was. The poignant stories rekindled bittersweet memories that were both painful and comforting. They reminded everyone present of a life rich in love that continued to resonate even after death. As more mourners gathered around, they formed a hallowed circle, an oasis of solidarity amid sorrowful reflection. In this emotional cocoon, whispers turned into supportive murmurs, voices blending together in soft consolation. "It's okay. He loved you so much. You'll always carry him with you." Every phrase served to validate not just the little girl's grief but also their own. Attendees who had arrived feeling isolated in their pain were suddenly united through a common thread woven by shared love and loss. The effect of this vulnerable display extended beyond mere sentimentality. It sparked introspection among those witnessing it. Everyone began grappling with their unresolved feelings about mortality. Could they truly embrace both joy and sorrow? Was it possible for them to find peace while carrying such heavy burdens? As puffs of breath emerged like fragile clouds escaping lips, mourners realized how deeply interconnected they were in experiencing grief. It wasn't just an individual's pain but rather a collective journey through heartache. From grandmothers to childhood friends, each person reflected on how these moments collectively shaped them, not only as individuals but also as a family knitted tightly by grief. With each passing minute filled with gentle reassurances exchanged amidst tears and laughter shared over treasured memories, attendees discovered something profound unfurling within them. Healing could arise within vulnerability when surrounded by loved ones. The act of embracing pain while simultaneously celebrating life created space for growth, an understanding that feelings shouldn't be pushed aside but rather embraced fully. The little girl's innocence became emblematic of hope. Hope for acceptance amid anguish and compassion born from witnessing another's suffering made tangible. As she curled tighter against her father's coffin, visitors felt emboldened not only to grieve openly but also to celebrate life in its entirety, all its complexities woven into life's intricate tapestry. In those emotionally charged moments marked by tenderness mixed with heartache lay reminders that true connections endure far beyond physical existence. They flourish within memories held dear and love exchanged over lifetimes lived side by side. Ultimately, witnessing this little girl grapple with such profound questions prompted attendees towards embracing love unreservedly. A reaffirmation that even amidst darkness shines light capable of illuminating paths toward healing when shared among many hearts intertwined through trials faced together, forever echoed in cherished memories passed down generations yet unseen. As the little girl lay on her father's coffin, her heart-wrenching innocence illuminated the chapel with a poignant reminder of the powerful bond between parent and child. In that moment, surrounded by mourning relatives, the true essence of parental love reverberated through the air, stirring emotions as deep as the sorrow permeating the space. Attendees couldn't help but reflect on their own experiences of love and loss, feeling simultaneously tethered to both joy and grief. Watching the girl's delicate features contort with yearning sparked memories for many present. Grandparents sighed at the bittersweet recollections of their own childhoods spent in the protection of loving arms. Parents observed their own children in her. They saw fragments of what they cherished and longed to preserve against life's inevitable changes. For them, she wasn't just a grieving daughter. She was a symbol, a living testament to love that transcended the boundaries of life and death. Among those gathered, stories began to emerge quietly in hushed tones. Recollections of family moments, laughter shared during mundane days, and cherished memories wrapped in warmth now tinged with loss. One attendee spoke softly about how this little girl had once played games at home with her father, how he would lift her high above his head or spin her around until they both collapsed in giggles on the living room floor. This memory felt alive in each word shared. However, it also carried an undeniable weight as it contrasted sharply with her current reality. The girl's innocent longing to reunite with her father prompted others to grapple with their parenting instincts. How could they possibly reassure her when they, too, struggled with understanding this harsh finality? Every mother in attendance felt a protective urge rise within them, an instinct to cradle her tightly and shield her from further pain. Yet they understood that such warm embraces wouldn't erase this reality. Instead, they could offer solace through presence, by sharing tears together, words of love enshrined throughout their collective history. With every supportive murmur exchanged, that she was loved deeply, that memories would carry her father's spirit forward, the attendees drew strength from one another. Parental love wasn't restricted by physical absence. Instead, it transformed into a legacy through kindness relayed across generations. In their eyes reflected not only their grief, but also reminders that love continues shaping lives long after goodbyes are spoken. As tears fell freely down countless cheeks while laughter mingled gently within shared stories, hope emerged from beneath layers of sorrow. Love created pathways through which everyone could reconnect despite absence. Each individual present recognized that those bonds are not easily severed. They become woven into daily life experiences shared by families left behind. The little girl's small hands pressed against the coffin reflected a yearning both personal yet universal. Dreams carried forth even when faced with loss haunt every survivor left behind, clinging now more than ever to lives lived robustly alongside those departed. Witnessing this powerful exchange rooted deeply in parental love served as a gentle reminder. Love does not fade when someone passes away. Rather, it morphs into something tender yet resilient. Emotions began to settle amidst the collective remembrance. Spirits lifted slightly as attendees absorbed these revelations about connection remaining intact. Their own loved ones were not truly lost, but instead were present in every moment shared thereafter, influenced by teachings imparted through parental affection. In these fragile yet empowering moments, hearts brimmed with gratitude for lives lived fully. The simple joys of everyday existence, eclipsed by moments pooled together under sacred reflections driven by memory's embrace. Love perpetuates cycles without boundaries binding before or after loss. Even through overwhelming sorrow, it continues illuminating paths toward reconciliation when nurtured among those who remain ready to carry forth that precious legacy woven within each story told amidst the sanctuary provided by this solemn chapel, filled now not just with grief but ultimately unwavering connections forged anew, forever held close within fractured yet loving hearts of all those touched by such enduring. Parental love remained steadfast against time, passing unyieldingly onward. The atmosphere in the chapel grew thick with emotion as the little girl curled on her father's coffin. Every quiet sob and exchange allowing personal grief to intertwine with a collective understanding. With each tear shed, the mourners felt an undeniable sense of community. It was as though their shared suffering created a sacred space that pain transformed into strength. In that moment, they weren't just individuals grappling with loss, but a collective united by love and remembrance. As family members gathered around, a protective instinct emerged. Relatives moved closer to offer warmth to both the little girl and one another. An aunt reached out, guiding her hand to rest over the child's small shoulder. "We're all here for you," she whispered softly yet resolutely, signaling to everyone present that this grief was not meant to be borne alone. It was an unspoken promise among attendees, that in their moments of sorrow, they would find refuge together. Slowly, others began to share their own stories, each recollection honoring the beloved father who had been lost while illuminating the powerful bonds of connection forged through shared experiences. A cousin recalled how he had taught her to ride a bike during summer afternoons, punctuating the memory with laughter even while tears lingered just below the surface. Each shared story acted as a thread binding them closer together, each voice adding layers to the narrative of love and mutual support. "Your dad would be so proud of you," one relative said gently, kneeling beside the child. The words became fuel for healing as attendees observed how deeply intertwined love breathed life into sorrow, pacifying sadness even through pressing heartache. Support emerged in many forms: warm embraces offered from one person to another or simply soft words exchanged. creating ripples of reassurance amid overwhelming emotions. Throughout the gathering, conversations became exchanges of poignant truths shared amidst teary-eyed smiles. People began to encapsulate their feelings. Grief transformed into hope, as if collectively affirming that memories woven tightly would never fade away completely. They only morphed into something enduringly powerful. The spellbinding bond of community arose from witnessing how resilience fueled healing amongst so many present. Not unlike branches on a tree providing shade for one another during stormy weather. Community support poured forth like sunlight breaking through clouds after insistent rain. The warmth starkly contrasting moments spent heavily laden with tears and profound heartache. There were inevitabilities in life none could escape. However, now existing markedly were warm gestures taken by hand. Shoulders offered for support during times when standing upright felt too burdensome alone. All merging to create something sturdy against inevitable trials discovered anew among this diverse assemblage of loved ones grappling together. As murmurs settled around her and shared laughter floated through memories captured in moments now located safely inside collected minds, giving rise further conversations perpetuating stories long since past. Each participant realized they were not merely spectators bearing witness but active contributors weaving moments back together again, crafting an ever-present legacy glowing brightly alongside individual experience as time continued its march forward. In observing this unfolding tableau around them, a gathering dense with vulnerability mingled within hope, it became apparent that even hearts shattered might still exist collectively enveloped within acceptance, serving deeper connections forged when vulnerability met understanding. For every tear shed over loss, only heightened appreciation felt for moments left shared, rather than reverberations felt alone within sadness. As attendees held hands tighter or settled beneath an umbrella stretched wide across collective grief amid solemnity encasing them all, the little girl remained a focal point pulsating brightly through endless waves full reflecting love's essential nature capable of fostering compassionate unity prevailing even in desolation faced head-on throughout grim times. Ultimately her innocence turned into an emblem within disaster transformed into beauty residing steadfast against time silently illuminating darkened places alongside unshakable affirmation anchoring all who remained sharing life. A reminder profoundly lasting born anew through these tender connections nurtured amidst compassion experienced together pressed firmly toward resilient futures yet unseen before staying faithfully afloat amid currents running deeper than any single tear allowed drift. Untouched unwavering against tides designed by circumstances unfurling larger than self-forged paths unfolding over lives lived alongside love ever vibrant wherever found reaching outward while holding fearlessly fast among all beloved memories held dearly despite heartache resounding continually echoed within soft reflections delicately flying upon hope-filled winds propelling forward irrevocably bound forever against memories. Clasp everlasting. As the service finally drew to a close, a palpable quiet settled over the chapel. The mourners, still tender from the emotional journey they had just shared, seemed to carry a new perspective, one touched by both heartache and hope. The little girl's innocent display of longing and her candid questions had opened a doorway for all present, allowing them to explore the depth of their own feelings and memories. While it was a day marked by loss, it also became a testament to the resilience of love enduring even in the face of unimaginable sorrow. Looking around at the faces etched with lines of grief, it was clear that something transformative had occurred throughout the afternoon. Each tear shed was not only for the father who had passed but also for all that he represented. The love he had given, the laughter shared, and now, an aching void that amplified everything they cherished about him. What began as individual mourning gradually morphed into collective healing. People found strength in one another amid vulnerability and raw emotion. In this sobering yet oddly uplifting moment, connections between family members grew deeper as stories were exchanged, memories filled with warmth interspersed between poignant silences. An uncle recounted how the father would spend endless evenings telling silly bedtime stories that left every child laughing uncontrollably. A sister shared how he encouraged her passions throughout life, always nurturing her dreams with unwavering support. Each reflection served not just as a reminder of what was lost but also as an affirmation of lives well lived. The profound impact of parental love resonated clearly in those reflections. It reaffirmed them all. Even death cannot extinguish love's flame. It merely shifts its form. For attendees left grappling with emotions both fresh and familiar, This understanding softened edges previously sharpened by grief. Rather than creating distance among individuals united by sorrow, their shared memories wove an intricate fabric connecting everyone present in unexpected, yet beautiful ways. As people prepared to leave the chapel that day, each carrying their unique burdens alongside shared experiences, they realized they were not alone in their grief. Rather, they held onto a legacy etched into hearts through memories cultivated together. It was because of this bond that each person could strive for healing despite loss being such an undeniable reality. While leaving, some gently squeezed hands or offered comforting embraces. Others exchanged knowing nods that encapsulated everything words failed to express. A shared acknowledgement of pain intertwined with gratitude for life, gifted through beloved memories now housed securely within every participant's heart. As they walked outside under an overcast sky still hovering above them, threatening rain but ultimately providing bright rays peeking through clouds, they felt lighter somehow. The little girl remained a constant presence in their minds, a symbol of both loss and survival woven delicately throughout every reminiscence told and retold lovingly amongst supporters gathered forth to nurture one another through trials faced together henceforth. In time moving ahead claimed timelessness beyond apprehension surrounding life's fragility. These gentle moments forged connections resilient against future storms while simultaneously fostering appreciation for how empathy triumphs over despair when rooted firmly within community ties anchored deeply through love, celebrating those left behind wholeheartedly refusing any quiet enveloping darkness threatening, once more pressing on fragile hearts awaiting renewal. Together they forged ahead into the world awaiting them, a pathway lined with echoes of love and moments lived fully, and an understanding that although grief may shape them profoundly, it bore witness only to what truly mattered: connection, love, and resilience lighting their way forward.